Why give up potential 100% to 500% rates of return? In this episode, I'm going to answer the question, should I pay off my mortgage before I retire? I wish I had a nickel for every time I've been asked that question. You're going to be shocked with my answer. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist, a retirement planning specialist for more than 46 years, and I've counseled many clients. I have several stories. I'm going to share a couple with you in this episode. And when I say, hey, would you give up potential 100% to 500% rates of return? People think I'm blowing smoke. No. Stay with me. You're going to understand what I'm talking about here. Years ago, I had a couple come to me at age 59 and a half. Both were school teachers, both the husband and the wife. And they had money, what I call trapped in IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, tax sheltered annuities. They were concerned because when they retired, they wanted to have the same lifestyle that they had when they were teaching school. Most teachers have a defined benefit pension that is calculated based upon how many years of service they taught school. They had taught school for 30 years, so you take 30 times 2% for every year they taught. So 30 times 2 is 60% of their last best average paychecks the last 5 years they taught school. So they knew they were going to be down to 60%, and they thought, wow, how can we get by? So they saved in the 401k, in the 403bs, and the tax sheltered annuities, and they wanted to have a nest egg. Well, they both together had $250,000, and they were told by their advisor and their CPA, oh, if you don't need the money, keep deferring until you're age 70 and a half. At the time it was age 70 and a half, you have to start pulling out the money or the government will penalize you 50%, 50%, on what you should have pulled out. Did you know that? Because they want the money out in tax before you die so they can tax you again when you do die, or at least your estate. They were told, oh, just put it off. Now the age is age 72 when you have to take out required minimum distributions. So I have this software and I showed them the darkness of the night, so to speak. If they let that 250,000 continue to grow, I was assuming 7.2%. So in 10 years, by age 70, 250,000 would double to 500,000, and then continuing to defer and taking out required minimums, they were shocked when they had to shell out at least $250,000 in taxes by stringing it out. I said, you're not saving anything. You're compounding the problem. You're delaying the inevitable. And they went, oh my heavens, we never... See, people sometimes make decisions based upon not paying tax in a single year, and they don't look at the big picture and how much they will pay in tax by taking RMDs forever when they have to start taking it out at age 70 and a half. In this story, age 72 is the current law. So they said, what should we do? And I said, if I were you, I would just get the money out, the taxes over and done with in a 5-year strategic rollout. Let's get the taxes over and done with sooner than later. They were like, we don't want to pay tax. I said, you're not saving by putting it off. We pulled out basically $60,000 a year. They had to pay tax of about $12,500 on that $60,000. And so if you do it over 5 years, they were going to pay $60,000 in tax. I go, do you want to wait and pay $250,000 in tax? Or do you want to get it over and done with paying $60,000 today? They go, well, where do we put the money after we pull it out? We don't need it. I go, you put it into investments that are tax-free from now on, and that will ultimately blossom when you die, reimbursing you for even the $60,000 you paid in tax. They said, where's that? I said, well, I call it the Laser Fund, and I'll show you how you can learn about the Laser Fund and get a free copy of my 300-page book explaining this. So what we did is we started to proceed to do that because her husband had been to a seminar and he learned about the question, should I pay off my mortgage? And she didn't. She came in and she had her arms folded. She was crocheting. And when we got all through, she goes, you're not going to try to talk us into not paying off our house? I go, well, no, you sort of made it clear you weren't open to that. She goes, well, what would happen if we didn't pay off our house? In fact, if we refinanced it? I go, okay, because that's what I would do. So by refinancing their house and not paying it off, we were able to resurrect tax deductions they had been killing, and that offset the tax. And we did that on their house. And then she said, what about our cabin? We refinanced their cabin, which was paid off. And we were able to then offset the tax because we did it the right way to tax deduct it. And we were able to offset a bunch of the tax. And so their tax bill over 5 years went from $60,000 down to $20,000. They said, what if we refinanced our rental duplex? We did that and we went down to zero. In other words, I was able to get $250,000 out of their IRAs or 401ks over a 5-year period. We actually ended up getting $300,000 out without tax because we did pay off their house. We refinanced their rental and we resurrected deductions they'd been killing. So I saved them not only $250,000 in tax, but even $60,000 down to zero. But they were able to get the money over to their laser funds. But when we got all through, I visited with them 5 years later. And she says, oh, thank you. Now let's pay off our house, our cabin, and our rental. I go, okay. I was reaching for the phone and she grabbed my arm. She said, aren't you going to try to talk us out of it? I go, no, if you want to pay it off, if you sleep better at night with it paid off, fine. She said, well, what would you do? I said, that's the last thing I would do. She says, now why? Okay, here we go. They had $1 million in mortgages. They had borrowed as high as 6%. Now, actually on their house, it was 4.5%, but let's just use 6. You're going to be blown away with this. 6% interest deductible in their tax bracket was only 4%. On $1 million, they were paying $40,000 a year net to have the mortgage. What were they earning over in their laser fund with the million? They were earning 8% or more. What's 8% on $1 million? That's $80,000. Would you pay $40,000 to make 80? Yeah, they did. How much more is 80,000 than 40,000? Don't say 40. It's 100% more. That's 100% greater rates of return. Now, if you want to hear the rest of the story, they have kept their house mortgaged throughout their entire retirement. They have refinanced their home in low interest environments down to 3%. 3% deductible interest in their tax bracket is a net cost of 2%. Every million, they pay $20,000 in interest. And they have had many, many years, they've earned 10% or more on their laser fund. How much more is 10 than 2? 500%. I have done this myself. Let me share another story with you. So I have another client, his name's Bill, and when he came to me, he was single, his wife had passed away, and he also had about $600,000 in his IRAs and 401ks. He didn't need the money, but he was age 70 and a half, and he needed to start taking out RMDs, or else he would be penalized 50% on what he should have pulled out on top of the tax. And so instead of doing that and taking out RMDs, which was going to be ridiculous, he was going to pull out $24,000 out of $600,000, pay tax on that and net 16 to buy gas and groceries. That was pathetic. That's what his advisor told him to do because his $600,000 had dropped down to less than $360,000 twice in the previous decade, 2000 to 2010. He was fed up with it. So his advisor said, no, we only want you to take out 4% because you're not averaging very good of a rate of return. We moved the money strategically out of his IRAs or 401ks. And it was $150,000 a year times 5 years. That's $750,000 because he was still earning interest while we did the strategic rollout. So we pulled out $150,000 a year. Now, even if he paid tax of a third, he pulls out $750,000 over 5 years. If he pays the tax on that of a third, he's only netting $500,000. But $500,000 in his laser fund has been earning between 8 to 10%. What's 8% on $500,000? $40,000, and that's given him tax-free income of $40,000 compared to the net after-tax IRA income of $16,000. Hello? How much more is $40,000 than $16,000? He was actually earning 10%, and so that's $50,000. How much better is $50,000 than $16,000 net after tax out of his IRAs? But get a load of this. In order to get that money, that $750,000 out with no tax consequence, he had a bunch of rental properties. He had been paying them off. He was retired. When he heard what I'm talking about right now, he refinanced his rental properties and resurrected deductions he'd been killing. In the process, he was able to offset nearly 100%, and so he basically got out $750,000 with no tax, because as he withdrew 150 grand a year, he offset it with new deductions on his rentals of 150,000 a year. But he says, Doug, I'm making so much money, I don't know what to do with it, because he was borrowing money at 6%, a net cost of 4% after the tax deduction, and he was making 8 to 10%. He was making 100% rates of return on lazy idle equity that used to sit in his rentals, earning 0 in the property. 0? Yeah, because the house, the rentals are going to go up or down in value regardless of whether it's mortgaged to the hilt or free and clear. But the strategic byproduct, he got his money out of his IRAs or 401ks with no tax. But he's been earning 100%, even 300% rates of return, because he's been able to borrow at 4.5% tax deductible interest. That's a net cost of 3, and he's been earning 9. How much more is 9 than 3? How much more is 90,000 on $1 million than 30,000 he pays in interest? 300%. So that's why I asked at the beginning, why would you give up potential 100% to 500% rates of return by paying off your mortgage if you understand this concept? So if this is intriguing you, be sure and enter comments or questions at the bottom here. Watch this next episode on my YouTube channel. I would encourage you to subscribe, and also the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I post a new answer to a financial question. But I have hundreds of educational videos like this, but I alluded to the Laser Fund. And so I want to gift you a copy of this 300-page book for free. It retails for $20. Don't pay $20. I'll gift it to you. You simply go to laserfund.com. You contribute $5.95 towards the shipping and handling, and I'll cover the rest, and I will pay for the book. And you can learn, this is where I put my serious cash, the money that I'm accumulating over here for retirement, for college funding, my real estate management, my business working capital. It is powerful. It will show you how to accumulate, access, and transfer your money totally tax-free.